How's everyone doing? It's been a minute. We're just gonna jump into it and see what the cards want to say. If you're new here, hi, my name is Allie. I'm a tarot reader and an intuitive coach for the last 6 years, going on 7, which is crazy. Crazy. A Chariot. 10 of Pentacles. I already see where this is going. 5 of Pentacles in reverse. 6 of Swords in reverse. Ace of Swords. The Magician. Death in reverse. I almost wish the 2 of Pentacles was in the Rider-Waite. Or I mean it is, but if we were using that deck, it would look different. And I'd be able to explain that better just from the illustration, but if you know tarot, usually the 2 of Pentacles has a loop and it looks like the infinity sign. Let's take a closer look at this one. All right, how is everybody handling Barbeau's stupid basket? That's what I've been telling all my people. I'm like, I already have a basket full of problems. Why do we need this? No coincidence, right? You don't even have to be a believer in astrology to feel the energy. This is an all signs collective reading. So, the other day I felt called to read a portion of a book for you surrounding this because I see so many people confused with what's going on in their life. And I want to say fate is happening, but destiny is also in your hands. And the Chariot card would speak of movement, but not just movement, also alignment. In the traditional Rider-Waite deck, it shows an image of, I guess, a carriage and 2 horses. And those 2 horses, to me, represent desire. And maybe they're wanting me to rewrite the way I even talk about it or look at it. But sometimes our desires and what we actually need are not always in alignment. Let's just say that. I feel like people use the word alignment very loosely. Hey, Brandon. Good to see you in. You know, Miriam and I were just talking about you. I believe we have an important job for you. Brandon, the moderator. I forget what it was, so I'll have to wait for her, but we talked for about like a good 15 minutes, and I was like, oh yeah, Brandon. Anyway, apparently Spirit wants to talk about this so that you guys have the key to unblock your issues if you have any. And let's be honest, This world is full of problems. Everybody's got problems, right? Otherwise, there would be no psychics and tarot readers and astrologers. Okay, so with Uranus, expect the unexpected. And it's a slow transit, but to other people, it feels abrupt and random. Like, wow, that came out of nowhere. But technically, because it's a slow moving planet, it wasn't random at all. It could have been your blind spots. This book I'm about to read to you, a piece, kind of explains how this planet kicks up suppressed emotions and trauma. And so the things that we're seeing in the world and things that we're experiencing in our personal life has a lot to do with that. You'll see mental anguish, physical symptoms, your emotional body just feeling different, your soul being called in a different direction. 10 of Pentacles. Let it, surrender it. All right, where does Spirit want me to start? Because I want to get rid of all the fluff. Like, you guys don't need to read a whole book to, like, know what's going on. But this book, he's been an astrologer for 50 years, and he studied how the planets impact us psychologically, which I find fascinating. And if you are someone that celebrates when there's a full moon, let's just say that you are doing ritualistic witchy stuff, whether or not you believe in astrology or tarot and whatnot. Anyway, do we really want to start at chapter 1? Because it's really long. I brought everything you need to know about astrology recently. Really, Brandon? That's funny because I remember a few years ago you were asking me, like, can you recommend any books? Which is crazy to me because you came from Miriam's network and she's got all the book recommendations all the time. But to be honest, like, there's only one book you need, and it's the book that Heather recommended me, and it says all about astrology. And I would say that's good for beginners because the book I'm about to read to you guys, like, unless you've been doing astrology for 50 years like this guy, it might not land. And so this is kind of me practicing and almost like homework for me. Miriam says if you can't explain your ideas to a 6-year-old, then you haven't done enough studying on what you want to create or your idea itself. Planets and transits, Robert Hand. Oh, really? Hi, Jazz. Jazzy Bella, 87. Have you been in before? Double tap to like the video so it gets it to people that it needs to go. Okay. I'm gonna, like, try to pick and pull pieces that I think are important to you guys, because otherwise if I start using, like, words like conjunction, trine, and, like, I don't know, I just feel like it might be too much. Okay. This article first appeared in the Lenwin book, How to Personalize the Outer Planets, book 10 in 1992. I'm a 1992 baby. Are there any 90s babies in the chat? If you're a 90s baby, please drop it in the chat. Tell me the year you were born, because I'm very curious of my audience. Very curious. It tends to be very random. The subject of trauma is a subject rarely dealt with by astrologers, yet it is a dynamic and experience that many people have. Accordingly, we as astrologers would do well to understand the nature of trauma in general, and specifically to be able to help our clients who are experiencing the effects of trauma in the spirit. The following article is presented. I'm a big believer in trauma education just for the sake of the world. And on some level, everybody has like a traumatic experience, right? But if you feel called to try to understand it, more than likely your trauma happened so that you can be of empathy and compassion and of service of other people. And so even before I started getting into tarot and astrology, you guys, I did like a huge psychology book dump to learn more about myself, my family dynamics, and my life. And it's funny because just recently I left a lot of those books behind. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm done with that. And I love physical books, so I'll keep the books. Have you guys heard the conspiracy that's not a conspiracy? Of how authority figures and people at the top are trying to take away books? Knowledge should be free because information is everywhere. How you choose to interpret it, though, sometimes we need a little help. 1969, that's the year my mom was born, Jazz. How cool! How cool. Not a coincidence, right? Nothing ever is. Okay. You know me, I'm gonna get off track a little bit, but it's all interconnected. Okay, also in this next chapter, we will include Saturn. And I'm saying this because I do look at Saturn with my coaching clients because that's where all your lessons are. Daddy Saturn. Even though it is not considered to be an outer planet, the reason we will do this is that Saturn correlates to the outer threshold of our conscious awareness, the boundary defining the interface between conscious awareness and the unconscious. Because Saturn correlates to the psychological function of repression or suppression, which is based on an act of denial of some dynamic or experience. Its linkage as a causal factor in certain types of trauma is implicated. Saturn will also be included because of its correlation to the inner and outer structure of the physical body. Thus, it has a linkage to physical trauma of the body. So what is trauma? Since everybody is an expert and likes to, I guess, compete with their level of pain with other people, don't you find that interesting? Because even myself, I've done that, where I'm like, I'm in so much frustration, anguish, and pain, and you can't comprehend or have the capacity of what other people are going through that might be worse. But we all have a soul contract. And so I think sometimes we lack empathy and compassion for what other people are going through because internally we're suffering, right? And honestly, we are not going to get over this hump with this world and everything that's happening unless we empathize and have compassion and have more discussions with each other. I am trying to leave my stuff in the past. My abuser is dead. Congratulations, Brandon. Congratulations, because that's more than some of us can say. Mine are still living. But I know that with that, is grief the right word? I don't know. It's a lot to process. So I congratulate you for doing the work. That's important. So what is trauma? Trauma is an intense mental and emotional, physical, or spiritual psychic disturbance resulting from stress or shock that can have a lasting psychic or psychological effect. An intense disturbance caused by shock or stress that can have a lasting effect. That I didn't repeat it. It was the book, and it was actually in all caps. Yes, this statement can probably describe the state of affairs for the entire planet now because of what psychologists have termed the delayed stress syndrome. Astrologically, this is a function of Saturn, Capricorn, or the 10th house. Delayed stress interferes some dynamics or events that have been suppressed, repressed, or ignored. And I want to say that, gosh, even people that are waking up, some of them are going through psychosis and mental anguish, and that's why you're seeing these events play out. Because their body is like, what the F? And so it's basically just a symptom of what's really going on. And everybody's calling it the loneliness epidemic, the avoidance epidemic, and I'd say that's pretty spot on. But you can only run for so long, right? All that one has to do in this country, for example, is to tune into one of the talk shows to witness yet another person or set of people talking about some horrible event, rape, sexual, psychological abuse, etc., to understand the effects of delayed stress caused by trauma, or the Vietnam veterans' problems, or the collective Neptune's search for the inner wounded child, the wounded child syndrome sense of identity. Oh, skipped over. The wounded child syndrome infers origin issues and how these issues define one's sense of identity. When Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune began their transits through Capricorn, and the timing of this is pretty impeccable, to be honest, because we're going direct Pluto and Aquarius in October, then we got an eclipse, we just had a full moon, we're going through Barbo's basket, so you should be seeing something. You should be feeling something. And if you're not, I mean, good for you, or you're just like not conscious or self-aware of what's happening. I'm like, it's got to be basically impossible to not be experiencing this right now. The delayed stress of childhood surfaced into the collective consciousness of many within the Western world. Because Capricorn is a cardinal archetype, there have been and is a need to go backwards in the sense of recovering the inner child by bringing to light the nature of the psychological and emotional imprinting that occurred in childhood. This must occur in order to go forwards through becoming free or liberated from these early conditioning Saturn patterns. And is it America that's year 9? Can someone clarify that in the chat? Do you know what I'm talking about? As an Aquarius sun, my life path is a 9. So it's kind of interesting, like I'm being pushed forward as a leader based on my very, very difficult life experience. And it's supposed to be more freeing and better. The upswing is going to happen soon. And so, like, to me, this is like small potatoes while everybody else is kind of freaking out, to be honest. On a larger level, there is a collective need all over the planet to politically, economically, and philosophically restructure the Uranus transit in Capricorn, the internal nature of each society, country, in order to be free. Uranus. From outmoded or crystallized political, economic, and philosophical structures that are impeding the evolutionary growth, Pluto, and needs of the planet and each nation on the planet. The revolutions within Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union, the reconstructing of the Middle East, the New World Order, the progressive enforcement powers extended to the United Nations, the rebellion within the Canadian provinces, their replacement of dictators within South America with freely elected officials, all attest to an individual and collective stress and trauma that will have lasting effects. Oh man, I'm about to get canceled for just saying that. Your life path 6, Brandon? What does that mean? Because I only know mine, but I have noticed that I have a pattern of attracting people in 3s. I'll attract a lot of people that are life path 3, 6, 9, 12. Is there even a 12? I don't think so, but you get the point. All right, back to it. Delayed stress is implied in all of this because we are living in a very transitional times in which everything has to change. The old ways of doing things do not work anymore. Yet to confront new and unknown ways of doing things is to create a fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown creates an individual and collective insecurity. The essence of feeling secure lies in the need for self or collective consistency. So the tension or stress between the old and the new, the transition therein, leads to the delayed stress syndrome because the resistance, Pluto, to necessary change generates a suppression or ignoring of the signs that change is necessary. Did this not come out in reverse, just FYI? When evolutionary needs are ignored or suppressed, then the need to change, now suppressed or ignored, increasingly compresses and intensifies. Intensity. Intensity. This is pretty intense, isn't it? The illustration. Crap, I forgot my... Where was I? Like the increasing friction in a fault line until change can no longer be avoided. This resistance can lead to catalysmic... I'm not saying that right. It's too early for me. Catalytic, I'm just going to say that, change which produces intense forms of individual or collective trauma. I can read so much faster in my head compared to speaking out loud, you guys. Because I always have a side thought and then I stumble. So this is good practice for me. Okay, continuing. The Gaia of the Earth as a biosphere has been generating many signs for many years. The breakdown in the ozone layer, the greenhouse effect, the contamination of the water, the contamination of the food chain, the alteration of weather patterns all attest to a trauma within nature that will have lasting effects. The signs have been and are many, and yet the necessary changes to adjust to the scientific and empirical facts have been and are too slow. The delayed stress in the Gaia of our planet will mushroom into possible catalytic events that will have a long range of consequences leading to irreversible change. Am I saying that right? So, okay, the question is, when was this written? Because, like, he's basically predicting everything, you guys. Gosh. No, I mean, is that right? Give me the year. 2014. We're in, what year is it? 2026? That's crazy, you guys. This is 1 year older than my youngest son. I'm here to help people. I help a lot of people even when they don't deserve it. The healer and the nurturer. Oh, Brandon. That makes me so happy to hear you write that. I was going to say that. Write that out loud. Because like 3 years ago, I don't feel like you were quite there yet. It's almost like you're walking into your identity and really owning it. That makes me really happy for you. And I'm excited to have you along for the ride. I lost my place again, you guys. Did I turn the page? We're just rolling with it. Okay. This may occur in many ways, including the accelerated Uranus, mutation Pluto, within the genetic structure and coding with many forms of life with nature, as all forms of life seek to adapt and adjust to the increasing trauma within the biosphere of Earth. This includes the forms of life called viruses and bacteria as they attempt to sustain their own lives through accelerated mutation within their own genetic structures. Uncontrolled disease is the result, the AIDS virus being but the first manifestation of the planetary trauma. Wow. Pause. COVID. Right? That happened. What else? Corona. No, that's the same thing. They had so many names for it. What's the newest disease? I'm going to call it the Taco Bell disease. Sorry, I make so many jokes. As long as I think I'm funny. This is interesting to consider from the point of view of the Gaia. Astrologically, Neptune correlates to the overall functioning of the immune system. Okay, this is where we get to the good shit. I have an autoimmune disease. It runs in my family. I suspect my youngest son has one. I did warn my oldest son, but he's a redhead. So if you know anything about redhead genes, they are just like basically like aliens. Like he can sustain like so much pain. Like he even had the experience of going down with anesthesia and like waking up. He's one of those people. And so I'm like, I'm just hoping it skipped over you. But trauma is the link to a lot of autoimmune disorders. And I know a lot of healers talk about that, but this book, not even being about holistic health, this is all science, psychology, and astrology. It's very interesting. Okay, and specifically to the pineal and thymus glands, which is why my coaching members, I always walk them through a detox. And I wouldn't say it's just diet. I say everything you consume, Virgo energy. A lot of us are not consciously aware of like what we're ingesting into our bodies, the shows, the music that we listen to and watch. And sometimes it can put you in a very bad loop that you want to get out of, but it's very difficult unless you're conscious of it. I keep having side conversations, you guys, and then I lose my place. Saturn or Capricorn correlates to the overall structure, integrity of the human body. Uranus correlates to the overall atmosphere of the planet, and among other anatomical and physiological correlations to the respiratory system of the human body, specifically the lining of the lungs. Pluto, again, correlates to the ammonia of evolution, metamorphosis, mutation, and the genetic coding in all forms of life. This card is a lot deeper than I think a lot of YouTube readers talk about. And like, I've just been scrolling my algorithm because of course I follow a lot of tarot readers and psychics on YouTube. And I've just been kind of like, I don't know, just watching. I wouldn't say my competition because I don't really believe in competition. I believe in collaboration. And also like kind of noting who I want to collaborate with. And I want to say, man, I'm so bored. I'm so bored of the all signs, who is thinking of you, what you need to know, whatever comes out about your ex. Even though when I do them, they are the most watched, asked for videos. But I feel like I'm not doing good. I'm not doing my role and my part and my purpose when I push that content out. Like, I'll do it every now and then because you guys like it, but ultimately, that's not what I'm here for, to be honest. My role is to point out the patterns for you guys so that you can live a happy, fulfilling, successful life. And a lot of the times we get in our own way. A lot of the times we don't even know what we want. A lot of the times what we want does not align with what we need for your soul evolutionary growth. Just saying. So what do we have here? The delayed stress within the Gaia of the biosphere is now manifesting at an acceleration within the breakdown of the atmosphere. Uranus transiting Capricorn. This breakdown is fundamentally and radically altering the nature and the quality of light within the atmosphere of Earth. The function of the pineal gland within the brain is determined by the quality and nature of the light entering the retina of the eyes within all living organisms. By altering the quality of light entering the biosphere, the simultaneous altering of the pineal gland and immune system occurs within all living organisms. In effect, this alteration will initially weaken or depress Capricorn, the immune system, as it seeks to adjust to these new conditions. Uranus and Capricorn. This is a lot of information. How are you guys doing? Yeah, guidance. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, sometimes I still struggle calling myself a guide. Like, I've been learning more to take a step back to help people build their confidence and their discernments and even self-study. Like, I have one coaching client, she's been with me a few times in the last 3 years, and she's kind of at the point where she's going to be walking into the healer and creatives and artists and learning more about astrology in general. And I was telling her, like, it makes more sense to me to help walk you through on how to find the information instead of just telling you, because it'll land differently. And because I have a Cassandra curse, sometimes I'll get like pushback because people are not trusting of themselves. So how are they going to trust a guide? And so I'm like, okay, here, information and knowledge is everywhere. How you utilize it, though, and it gives you a sense of confidence when you can find that information yourself. It gives you like a sense of accomplishment, is my belief. And it's difficult as a coach because you kind of have to meet people where they're at. Like, I had another coaching member who was completely new to astrology. He was also, he is a male, a heterosexual male. And so, you know, most men, I would call them a skeptic. And so I had to find a way to communicate with him without the astrology and spiritual fluff. But 3 to 4 years in later of knowing him, he's kind of picked up on it on his own, done some book studying and whatnot. And, you know, everybody has like their own way. Anyway, off point again. Okay, let's skip over some of this because it's talking about a lot of history, but do you guys need to know the history? Okay, let's just read this portion. A quick glimpse into modern history with Uranus and Neptune were transiting through Capricorn the last time they were together. The 1820s reveals some of this dynamic relative to the Industrial Revolution of that time. The Industrial Revolution totally altered and restructured Western societies whose imprint we still live with this day. And it is that imprint or structure that is once again demanding radical change. The point of citing delayed stress as an example of trauma is that it is one of the most common forms of trauma that generates a collective or individual reality that is defined by Saturn Capricorn, by the effects of trauma itself. Yet the behavioral effects that are generated are not recognized as caused by the trauma itself. It is not recognized because of the suppression or repression within the collective and or within the individual. And of course, the reasons for the suppression or repression are the nature of the specific trauma is so severe that the individual or collective cannot accept that the trauma or is occurring in the first place. Yet the suppressed trauma continues to dictate the behavior, the dictation of the behavior operating at a subconscious level, Uranus. Operating in this way, the effects of the trauma produces many signs within the behavioral patterns at any level of reality, i.e. breakdown in the ozone layer, irrational rage in an individual's behavior patterns, economic structures that produce increasingly homelessness, bankruptcy, merges of corporations, insane budget defects. That tells us something is amiss. Oh, this is interesting. I have to read this because this was written in 2014. As of this writing, 1 out of 10 Americans is currently on food stamps. 1 out of 10. And I'll just say, I talked about this when we had that food scare. Because me and my children have been on state and food stamp benefits for years. And it is not enough. It has never been enough. And I hate saying that because, you know, abundance mindset. I've always managed and able to figure it out. But just imagine a lot of people that don't have the brain that I do with creative problem solving and thinking. And they're struggling. They're struggling. And it is everyone's human right to have their basic needs. It is greed and the lack of empathy and compassion that, you know, we hear people say, why do they deserve that? Why don't you go to work and blah, blah, blah. I had food stamps even when I was working. I've never made a livable wage. Never. And to me, you know, you can make money anyway from anywhere, but you can never get back time. And so to me, I look at the currency of time more than I do with the numbers of money. That's just my 2 cents. If we focus on the individual, such signs can be classified as personality disorders of various types, such as agoraphobia, pathological lying, extreme forms of misogynistic or sadistic behavior, intense or irrational rage that permeates into an individual's behavior, and all forms of pathological or repetitive compulsive behavior, sociopathic behavior, multi or split personalities, and neurosis and psychosis. And if you guys know what's been going on in my personal world, I have a lot of experience with people with multiple personality disorders, borderline, narcissistic, sociopathic. I still deal with stalking to this day. And I tell myself that it's all for the collective. You know, we went through like that period where everybody was talking about that we live in a narcissistic world. And now it's so bad that we're like, oh my gosh, it's sadistic. A call for radical change, right? So even though these signs of behavioral disorder define the nature of one's identity, the individual typically does not recognize or own the behavior until the nature of the specific trauma is unlocked. Once unlocked within the individual, it becomes imperative that treatment or therapy is entered into so that a reintegration of the personality can occur. This does not necessarily mean that the effects of the trauma can permanently erase, as if the trauma never happened, but it can mean that the effects of the trauma is changed because it has been brought up from the unconscious into the light of the consciousness. In this way, a perpetual awareness of the effects relative to the effect can be sustained in such a way that the individual over time can consciously change his or her behavior. The repetitive compulsion syndrome linked with traumatic behavior fundamentally altered. It's probably higher now. I made a livable wage in 2007 as a nurse's aide. Barely livable. Oh, wow. That's right. You are like a caretaker. I usually play the role of a caretaker, an assistant, sometimes a host. I'm not even meant to be, I don't know, my strength is usually within a group and sharing power with another person. Like Miriam. Okay, where am I? The delayed stress syndrome caused by specific trauma is but one of reaction to trauma, even though the most common and pervading. Behavioral reactions to it is dependent on suppression of a specific trauma, This means an individual can experience trauma and not suppress it, and yet the effects of the trauma will alter the individual's behavior anyway. The alteration can continue on into a potentially indefinite amount of time until the effects of the trauma is worked out in some way. The behavioral alteration is a function of the stress associated, I didn't say that right, associated within the trauma, even through the trauma is not suppressed. Hopefully that's making sense to you. I even thought about like rewriting this in like dummy form. Not to call anyone dumb, but it is a lot to take in, isn't it? It's not for me though. That's okay. Sometimes you can take on a caretaker role without it being your career or your work or your job. You kind of have to have your own discernment of like, you know, what you're willing to do every day. And I'm kind of the same way. I could never be a nurse. Never. And yet I have a lot of nurses in my family. All right, trauma of the mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual bodies. Trauma occurs again to the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual or psychic bodies. And as well be seen, these bodies, when trauma occurs, can interact in a chain reaction, like way, i.e., severe physical trauma, causing a trauma to the mental, emotional, or spiritual bodies. The mental body. Astrologically, this will correlate with Uranus as a primary significator. It is lower octave Mercury as secondary significator. The types of trauma associated within the mental body are stroke, various types of psychological or psychiatric disorders, epilepsy, various diseases of the brain, sudden or unexpected changes that alter the physiological reality of the individual, and the external structures of his or her reality that have defined their sense of identity up until the unexpected change begins to occur. The emotional body. Astrologically, this would correlate with Pluto as a primary ruler and the Moon and Neptune as secondary rulers. The types of trauma associated with betrayal, abandonment, and gross misuse through misapplied trust. Psychological and sexual abuse. And sudden loss, experiencing I just like cannot say that, you guys, of an individual or collective nature, anticipation of events that appear to be fated or beyond the control of the individual. Brain going faster than my mouth. The physical body. Astrologically, this will correlate with Saturn. The types of trauma associated with the physical body are various physical traumas, such as severe injuries of various types, rape, torture, intense physical illness, disgeneration of the body through various such as disease, birth disorders, such as cerebral palsy, spinal bifida, and etc. The spiritual body. Astrologically, this will correlate with Neptune. The types of trauma associated with the spiritual body are loss of faith, loss of beliefs, loss of values, massive disillusionment, and in rare cases, being possessed by an unwanted spirit. That sucks, and I've had that happen before. I haven't even been able to talk about my ghost stories, you guys. One of these days. Again, a key point to remember is that even though trauma can occur in one of the specific bodies, i.e. physical, there is almost always a chain reaction effect that impacts the entire organism, the other bodies, in a variety of ways. Isn't that crazy? And then it goes through each planet, house, number, where it sits, and it can tell you basically what you'll suffer through if we don't get our shit together. I'm feeling silly, you guys. The conversations that never happened to bring a sense of peace. conversations, discussions. Like, I was just talking to my son about this, like, you know, when there's an abuse of power and that something is not authentic and genuine when people don't like to be asked questions. Because if you were hiding something, then what is it? Unless they just like have an extreme difficulty of like communicating in general, which is their lane, not yours. But the shame that surrounds even admitting that we have trauma or that we're struggling, I think the patriarchy is to blame, to be honest. For whatever reason, Brandon, they're saying, talk to Miriam. I don't know why. Yeah, I've been saying this for years, but we'll say it again. We're being regrouped. So if you have a feeling of displacement, surrender and let it happen. If you're feeling called to move, surrender and let it happen. If you're being casted out of a group, say like with what happened to me with my previous landlord / employer, let it happen. Oh man, all I can think about are conspiracy theories that are not conspiracies at all. But water is our friend. We can't make water either. I know there's been a lot of talks of water drying up, data centers, all that jazz. So have gratitude for your water. I believe there's a reader on YouTube that's pretty well known. Her name is Shara. And in her videos, she always talks about manifesting with water, talking to your water. I'm a believer in that too. For me, it's not so much every time I take a sip of water, but I've also done that. I've like said mantras before drinking my water, but I'll say mantras in the shower. Water has been like a spiritual cleanse for years, and apparently we've not had enough gratitude for it until we don't have it, right? And it's almost like humans don't really notice the changes that need to be made until we don't have our basic needs met, right? I talk a lot about housing and stuff. I just walked away from a property management real estate career. And I don't know if it's like really walking away. I just think it's being rewritten. Like I always imagined my hobbies and I guess lifestyle with all of this would somehow interconnect with my experience with property management and real estate. And apparently it's true. It's just not the way that I thought. And I was just talking to one of my previous coaching clients about this. I was like, you're really getting in your own way, because the way you want something to happen is not the way it's going to happen. And therefore, you doubt your manifestations when it comes in, and you're rejecting opportunities, because manifestation, you can't control how it happens. And with Uranus and Jupiter playing a part, man, it can look crazy and vastly different and random, super random. But you got to have the discernment of, getting in tune with your spidey senses, basically, on when a manifestation is starting. I also have a lot of my clients do a human design chart, even though I'm not a human design, practitioner, I guess you could say. But I think that they all have some truth and knowledge and wisdom that you can utilize. But for me, I'm a manifestor generator. And so the way I manifest can be different than other people. I usually have to sit back and wait for something to show up. And it's my intuition that kind of kicks in of like, okay, this is an opportunity. This is a synchronicity and sign of something that I manifested internally. And so even when you're not a manifestor generator, I usually focus on internal manifestations more than, like, say you write a list of things you want to manifest and you want, like, I don't know, a black Subaru and $50,000. How it comes in, you might think, okay, if I just work this job for 5 more years and get that promotion, those manifestations will land. No. Sometimes it won't even come through that way. But also psychologically, and your soul contracts and what we call your bardo, does that even align with your soul evolutionary growth? Because I've manifested things that weren't in alignment and then they've been ripped away. Let me just say that. And so that's something to consider. It's good to submerge in it. Water, yes, submerge yourself in water. Touch some grass. Get connected to the earth. Appreciate the earth. Have gratitude for the earth. Because where else are we going to go? Mars? Who knows, man? Who knows? Self-awareness and consciousness is going to be the key to survival, because people are going to get really tired of this energy of people being ridiculous, not healing themselves, reacting out of their suppressed or repressed trauma. And their soul is going to be moved towards more love, compassion, and support, and leave all of that behind, which, if you're in that position, I congratulate you. I honestly don't know what I'm saying, you guys. Channeling, like, when I rewatch some of my videos, like, I don't even remember what I said, so I'll have to, like, rewatch myself. And I'm like, oh, yeah. There it is again. The chariot. Two of Cups again. So the Pluto and Capricorn energy is very singular, single-focused. And remember, like, we went through COVID and everybody was hoarding toilet paper? Pluto and Aquarius would be like buying the toilet paper but sharing it, donating it, like it's for the sake of humanity, even maybe finding a way of like, I don't know, not using toilet paper, like having a bidet or whatever. Well, it's funny to me that they're using Scorpio terms because that would be the death card. It would be like fleshing out something. I was just telling my mentor this, that I usually notice an energetic shift when I see or hear something in my physical reality, and it usually has to do with some kind of combustion of water. My toilet will run. There will be a leak in the roof. There will be, I don't know, an overflowing toilet. And it always pisses me off because, like, that's like the worst way to tell me that something is about to happen. But you'll usually see shifts in your physical reality that represent something that's happening internally. And usually water has to do with suppressed emotions. And so my Gemini placement, I can kind of tell you in mercurial ways of, I guess, the visual of what that looks like. Say you have a dream about laying in a boat and the water is very peaceful. It could be a call to find peace within your emotions. It could also represent that there's some kind of level of stagnancy. It could also be a call to rest. I do dream interpret. Death in reverse again. The wounded healer, patterns. The Knight of Pentacles. This guy always gets a bad rep, but slow and steady wins the race, right? He's very low. I was going to say loaded. He can be loaded because he works his way to the King of Pentacles, but the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight, but he's also practical. He's also devoted. And it comes with a level of discipline. It'd be like, you know, you have a goal to, I always use gym terms because of my Virgo, but you have a goal to gain 10 pounds of muscle. Therefore, you have to work out 3 to 5 times a week and wake up at a certain time to make it to the gym or clock off work and blah, blah, blah. You got to meal prep. It's that level of discipline. And we talk about, you know, the world is ran on so much convenience in a way that it's kind of making us sick. For example, Taco Bell. And it was funny to me how people were freaking out about it. And I'm just like, okay, but how often are you eating Taco Bell? And is this the first time that Taco Bell has had this kind of episode? No, it has not. We've had issues with almost every fast food industry of creating some kind of level of sickness. And maybe the call is to be more conscious of what you consume. If you value your money, you would also value your body. But apparently, we've been conditioned and set up to not think that way. We've just been in hustle, survival, and grind mode. And so now we got people freaking out about the Taco Bell lettuce or lettuce in general, which, like, lettuce doesn't hold a whole lot of nutritional value. Like, out of all the salads, go eat some spinach. Go eat some spring mix. Like, you're tripping, dude. You're tripping. Or grow some lettuce in your yard. If you guys didn't know, I actually have an ancestry of farmers. I have like even a great aunt and uncle that still make kimchi in their backyard. And so that kind of thinking has never made sense to me, but I am a user of like those third-party vendors that deliver food sometimes when I just have those days where I cannot cook. But I'm very mindful of what I'm even ordering. I miss my bidet. Hey man, toilet paper is expensive. I saw like a portable bidet and I was like, that's kind of genius. But I'd feel so weird just like carrying that. I got Outback Steakhouse like 3 times this month and their salads are fine. Right? I've also had an order like that. And like I always like, I'm kind of OCD about that, but I'll look at my salads and if like anything looks suspicious, I'll throw it out or I'll piece it out. I'm just like, there's no way I'm putting that in my body. This has been coming out a lot. 5 of Cups in reverse. Yeah, dealing with grief. Dealing with repressed or suppressed emotions. I don't even know what I'm going to call the title of this video, to be honest. I heard displacement, 4 of Wands in reverse. Hoarding, 4 of Pentacles. Even hoarding love, compassion. Fear of not having enough, being enough, worthy of, Chiron and Taurus. They're telling me that there's more information coming out to light. A secret is being revealed that will wake the world up from disillusionment. Happening within Leo season. By October, you should have a pretty good sense of who your friends are. Lean on your friends. I love this card. Isn't that cute? So cute. Also, if you have pets, pay attention to how your pets are reacting. Their sense of time is completely different than us, and obviously their animal instincts are more in tune with what's going on with the earth and the energies around us that we're a little bit slower at. So pay attention to your familiars and your pets. They'll be like your messenger and guide, apparently. Okay, we're about an hour in. I think I'm going to end it there. But I hope that was helpful for you guys and that you enjoyed it. Same, Brandon. So much same. But I hope you guys have a good day.